Hey, hello and welcome. This is Chris Dunn. I am with Blue Hive Exhibits, and this is the Event Marketer's Toolbox. There's only two of us today. Look at this. We've culled the herd down, as it were. I specifically flew overnight. Boy, are my arms tired from Vegas to make sure I was here in time for this. But this is my friend Brendon Hamlin. Oftentimes serves as a co-host. Today, he's a guest. So this is a little backstory, I guess. We connected a year and a half ago. Something about craft beer. You probably heard the story before. Ended up inviting Brendon on early in the in the rollout of the Event Marketer's Toolbox. He was such a great guest. I was like, hey, why don't you come and sit in the guest host chair? So, hey, how you doing, Brendon?
Hey, I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, it's quite a compliment to be not only asked to be on the podcast, but then asked to be a co-host of the podcast over and over, and then to be asked back again to be a guest. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation. Normally, I'd be kicking it over to our guest, but I guess that's me.
You are the guest, exactly. Well, before you jump into exactly who you are and what you do, I just wanted to remind everybody this is a live show. So if things get screwed up, they get screwed up because that's how things work in the event industry, right? We react and we roll with it. There's going to be a little bit of screen sharing, as it were. We've done this a few times, and I know that many folks will be actually listening to this, maybe without the video, after the fact as a podcast. But you can see this show over and over again on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and then again, you listen to it on any of your favorite podcast channels. But because it's a live show, we love it when people kind of jump into the chat and let us know where they are, what kind of work do you do, and if you have questions as we're going through, we'll do our best to kind of get to them. Juana's behind the scenes on the big board today, running things. So we'll do our best to get everybody involved and get to those questions. So Brendon, give us a little bit of a background on your company and who you are, how you got kind of started in this world.
Yeah, sure. So I came out of the television business. So I spent about 15 years in television marketing. So and specifically in the promo section of television marketing. So I worked for a number of cable networks, including the Turner networks, Fox Sports, Speed Channel. Was at Discovery and TLC for a little while. So I spent a lot of years in that promo space. And this was really before the advent of social media. And so content, when you talk about content, it was on linear networks. It was on channels, network TV. You had to tune in. And so that's what we spent. We had whole teams that built just on-air promos for television shows. And so it's a great time to be in TV, great time to be with those organizations. And I learned a ton about how to say a lot in a short amount of time and draw viewers to a specific place. And I think that experience really sort of is very applicable to what we do these days, which is also, short attention spans and really trying to draw people towards brands and organizations. So back in 2012, I was finishing up a interim role at TLC as a creative director, and I was seeing this, the YouTube coming along and Facebook coming along and content being a thing. And I thought, well, maybe there's a way that we could be doing content directly for brands. There's these avenues and these platforms that are emerging, and maybe there's an opportunity there. And that's when I got involved with an experiential agency out of New York and Connecticut called Inspira Marketing. And we started working with them on conferences, on experiential, on activations, on all of this sort of in-person event marketing. And it really was a new world for me because I'd spent a lot of time in TV, in dark rooms, with editors and creating promos and being out in the public, out where things were really happening was really exciting. And so we started working with them over 10 years ago. We're still working with them today. And it just opened up a whole new world where we've really embraced event marketing, and really we'll get into sort of what we mean by that, but like the whole spectrum of event marketing. And so what we do now is we're a production company that focuses on supporting brands and agencies. And sometimes the brands, we're connecting to the brands through the agencies, obviously, and capturing and creating content within the events that they are producing. And we just feel like it's a unique space. It's a really fun space to work in. It's a little bit of a high wire act sometimes, because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Just like what you said, Chris, like, sometimes stuff goes sideways and you got to figure out how to make it happen. And we can get into some of those stories, because that's what makes it fun, I think, is like that energy of not exactly knowing what's going to happen is fun. And so we have evolved over the last decade to really, it's not just sizzle reels. Now it's all kinds of different content that you can connect or create within the event space. And it's just, I mean, we just really love it. And we feel like it's one of these untapped areas that's growing, that really authentic and unique content can be created. And we're happy to evolve with it. Nice.
Well, that's great. So, our relationship has been evolution. Your time spent on this, on the show has been great. If anybody is a frequent viewer of the Toolbox, you might recognize Brendon's background. I actually was there a month ago live, and we did another show with with Craig Raposa. Yeah, exactly. We were sitting right back there with Craig Raposa from IPME. We also did some screen sharing for that one as well. So looking forward to rolling this out and showing some examples. So before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes per se, just a couple words about our sponsors. So I work for Blue Hive. Blue Hive Exhibits is a almost 21-year-old creative group. We're based in outside of Boston and also out of Vegas. I just came back from Vegas. It's so awesome to have that West Coast Vegas location. Literally yesterday, I'm standing on the side of the road waiting for somebody from the shop to swing by with a couple of things that the client asked for last second. He was able to drive it over. I literally, he didn't even barely stop the car, slowed his roll, handed the stuff to me, and he was gone. So it's great to have the facilities where we build things, we store. We've got people on on both coasts, and that's really helpful to help us best serve our clientele. Secondarily, we're also sponsored by Fist Bump. Fist Bump is the group that's actually putting on and doing all of the heavy lifting to make this podcast work. I go back and I think about a year ago, and we were getting ready to do our first episode. I was working with a young woman by the name of Caitlin Carey, still a friend, not involved with the show anymore. But man, we tried to do this thing on our own, and we just couldn't get it off the ground. And Fist Bump finally said, you know what, let's do this. We're going to help you lift this. And it's been amazing. So here we are. We're nearly at 50 episodes captured. We've been really consistent. We might change the cadence a little bit going into 2026. We've learned so much. We've had a lot of fun. We've had amazing conversations, and all of those conversations, like you said, Brendon, are unique one-time things, right? So one of the coolest things that Fist Bump helps us do is we capture all of this content, and then this content becomes things that we can share. We can use it in our sales cadence. We can use it in our outreach. Obviously, it's on social. So all of those things are helping Blue Hive become more well-known in our space. Thank you to Fist Bump. And just a shout out to our president, Caitlin Correa, who is at an EDPA event down in Florida. And she texted me this morning, and she's like, the podcast is like everybody knows about the podcast. She did say, Chris, you're the star, but I really kind of push it back to all the people who are helping me. I'm not the star. I'm just facilitating. So anyways, I'm having so much fun doing this. The conversations across the board are eye-opening, and I learn something new each time we interview a new guest, which is so fun. So,
well, you do a good job. So
thank you.
You do a good job. So
I appreciate it. Why. Maybe I should have been in TV.
Well, maybe. Yeah. We can talk about that.
You had a great face for radio. I've heard it said. Listen, anybody who's listening along or watching, if you're in events and, you're sitting at around a dinner table, maybe at Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, and people say, that don't know you all that well, what do you do? And you say, I'm in events. And they go like, okay, what does that mean? Because
Right.
it's a big, broad bucket, right? There's so many different areas that you could focus on to be in those events. So obviously, if you're that type of person, or you're in events, obviously you've kind of got your talk track refined a little bit. Well, I focus in this area here. I do these things. I'm festivals. I'm a trade show guy myself. We handle corporate events. We're the AV specialists, whatever it is, right? There's a lot of different things. So
Yeah.
to kind of tee up the presentation that you're going to do, you guys kind of think about events in like 4 separate buckets. And I want you to kind of just real quick, just kind of tick them off. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into each one and how it is that HAMLIN Creative gets involved in each one of those, quote unquote buckets, and how they can help brand, agency, end line customer, whatever it is. So Brendon, walk us through kind of your 4 buckets, and then we can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of that.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is not comprehensive. So there are certainly things that we don't deal with, but these are the areas that we primarily touch and work within. And so we've broken it down into brand activations. So, literally going out and that could be sampling, that can be having an experience, that can be something where the brand is trying to, directly interact with their consumer or their customer or their fan. Then trade shows. This is your world. It's a niche audience. So if it's like we were just doing an AI conference, or you have the tractor conference, or you have the eyeglasses conference, whatever that is, you have a very, very specific group of people that are going to go to that. Then you have events, and the events can be we do a pitch night that we cover. There's a bartender competition that we cover. It's not necessarily it's maybe it's open-ended to the audience, but it's maybe specific. It's not a conference, it's not a trade show, it's not an activation, it's an event. And so it could be a gala or a live show. There's a lot of different things that are in the events space when we talk about that as a category. And then the last one is conferences and meetings. And so that can be, that can be a hybrid too. It can be part trade show and part conference. It can be, a industry meeting. It can be folks that are very specific to that topic, and so these are kind of the main areas that we cover. But again, there's certainly areas outside of that we don't cover. So, or haven't at least, but those are kind of the primary ones.
Great. Right. So obviously, Blue Hive is primarily a trade show exhibit company, but we do events. And for us, really, that means if we're going to lean into our wheelhouse or our specific skill sets, that's usually involving creation of some sort of 3-dimensional architecture or a dimensional storytelling device, graphics, things of that nature. So that's why here on the Event Marketers Toolbox, we often end up kind of focusing on trade shows. So this is exciting today to really kind of branch out from that a little bit, because I know a lot of the folks who do listen to us are event planners, and they do a lot more, than just trade shows.
Right.
And Brendon, just kind of thinking back to how you and I connected on LinkedIn. Again, it was a post about craft beer, which we both share a love of. But one of the very first things you did, I had dropped my son off in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. He goes to school there. The Little League World Series happens at the very same time that drop off. Yeah. And you were like, "Hey, I saw that you were in Williamsport. Here's a link to a really cool activation that we did at that very same event." And it was for a fabric softener.
Yeah, it was for all fabric softener. Yeah.
So dirty uniforms, right? Smelly kids, dirty uniforms.
Right.
Like that makes so much sense. And I watched the video and I was like, oh man, this is super cool. So that's just kind of a nice little symbiotic, coming together of our two worlds. And
right.
You really kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, like this is like legitimate. You guys bring the film crew in and you do this great job capturing everything.
Yeah.
And it made us think differently about how we're capturing content and building these, live assets from our shows and from shows that we go to for our exhibitors and so forth. So anyways, that was a little bit of diversion, but we're going to jump right now into bucket number one. So you've got an example. We're going to talk a little bit more brand activation, a different specific experience. And you've actually got I think a video to share on this one here.
Yeah. So this is just to set it up a little bit. So this is several years ago now. So 2017, I believe.
Mhm.
And there was a push by the brand Hefty to kind of maybe take part of the red Solo cup market share,
Yep.
eat into that a little bit. And
Yeah.
so they did there's a flip cup challenge, and they took this on the road to baseball stadiums over the summer. And we went to St. Louis and captured this first one. And this is a great example of it's quick. It's only 15 seconds, but it was a great example to sort of tease a brand activation to that's partly a road show. So they would go to these baseball stadiums, and this was one of the first stops, and then it was going to go on, and it was sort of a, hey, it's coming to your town kind of a piece. So let me make sure that I can do this properly and turn everything on. I'll come over here and open that up, and then we're going to go there. Okay, here we go. And then I think we need to unmute it as well, Juana. Let me see if that.
I'm not getting any sound on this end here.
You're not? Okay. Well, essentially, it's what we're showing is this. We're showing that it was this fun event. They blew up the
inflatable, giant inflatable red cup.
Yeah. The what's funny is there's a shot in here right here. This is about the 5.5 seconds of drone footage that we had, and that we were able to get before being told, bring the drone down.
Okay. Gotcha.
But
all right. This is the early days of drones as well.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it was a great success, a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and something that just, positioned the brand in a scenario that was, positive and fun for that effort, that road show across the country.
Right. Because no one ever knows what's in a red Solo cup. It's never anything illicit.
Right.
Any fraternity keg party, any tailgate, any walk on the beach.
Right.
Put it in the red cup, but not a Solo cup. cup. Absolutely. We prefer to drink our craft beers out of glass, but every now and then you have to use a disposable cup.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I've never been to the ballpark in St. Louis. I guess people who are familiar with that ballpark might recognize some of the some of the architecture around there to identify that, but it could be any ballpark, right? So the content you created there certainly allows you to take that roadshow and use that content to push and push and push. Stopping in Boston, we're going to Baltimore, we're going to we're going to San Francisco. Name any ballpark. The same type of thing can happen, and they did do that, right? They did a dozen stops or 10 stops or whatever it was. Country.
Yeah, and this isn't the only road show that we've done. We've done other road shows where we really utilize each stop as a way to promote to the next one, and so which is really and that's not exclusive to activations. You could take that, say you have a trade show that's going to be in 3 or 4 different cities. Like, you could be creating content that leapfrogs from one to the next and drives attendance to your next stop. It can all sort of support itself. Even it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's a brand activation to do that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, having just come from a show out in Vegas, and, listen, the same thing with ballparks, right? Like, and you name any convention center, they kind of look the same, maybe architecturally different on the outside, but from an interior standpoint, you might be anywhere.
Right.
So the idea of getting that capture, rolling it out during the event, real quick edits or whatever, get it out fast to drive traffic during the event. And then as you post-show follow through, hey, you probably, if you didn't get a chance to go to the show or go to the event, here's kind of what it looked like. If you did, do you remember that awesome, experience that we had? Everybody was laughing, super high energy. And then we're using, again, parts and pieces from that content that was built, and we're pushing that. Hey, 2 months from now, we're in Chicago. We're doing XYZ show. So all good.
Yeah. It's, it just is. It goes back to that strategy that we've talked about before on other episodes, and we can get into that a little bit more as well. But, thinking about that ahead of time, that's different than just going and shooting something that's happening and documenting that it happened. So
right, absolutely. All right, Juana's keep us on track between the sticks here. This is good. Thank you, Juana.
Thank you.
Bucket number 2. So Nespresso at NRA, National Restaurant Association. This is actually a big show for us. We've been there for the last several years, not with Nespresso, but a couple other brands and we're kind of growing in that market. So this is exciting. Tell us a little bit about that particular event that you did for Nespresso.
Yeah, so that's also been a couple years ago. That was a little bit different in that it wasn't for the brand. Actually, we were using the brand as a way to highlight the agency's capabilities, and so the agency had built this wonderful space for the event, and then we came in to shoot it, and then also shoot with the key people that were involved with Nespresso to talk about their experience with the agency, and then we built a piece for the agency to then go back and utilize for their own capabilities presentations. And so and that show is so big. It really is one of those things where you're dedicated to that footprint. So if you were having to do, you get your steps in. If you were having to do more than a few clients in that one space, and so that's how that worked. I think trade shows really are this untapped opportunity. There's so many things that can be happening at a trade show. A lot of times, the purpose of the trade show is you're going to have people flowing through that booth. You're going to have people, connecting. They could be customers, they could be partners, they could be, suppliers. But who it is that came through there. There are a lot of things that you could be creating on site. The way I look at a trade show booth is it's basically like a film set. It is the work that you've put in to create this space is creative. It's you've put a lot of time and effort into it. There's a lot of resources put into it. So why not utilize that space as a backdrop for content creation? So say like I said, the people that have come through because you probably scanned all their badges or you've had meetings with them. What if you had the head of marketing, or what if you had the CEO in that space, delivering a message directly to the people that have just been there? So again, you come out of that trade show with a list of folks, and what if one of your key people was now speaking directly to those folks, saying, thanks so much for coming to our booth. We showed you this and we showed you that, and here's what our plans are. Look for a call in the coming weeks from our head of sales, or whatever that is. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to craft something that's very specific to that audience. What's so much different than, when I was in the promo business was we were broadcasting, and now we're really narrow casting. You're really talking to a finite group of people because the data is there and who they are. So you can craft these messages that are specific to them. So there's all kinds of things that can be done on that footprint because you've put all of this time and effort and energy into it that can maximize that return. And just, I mean, how many conversations have we had, Chris, on the podcast here with people talking about how do you get a better post event interaction,
Mhm.
and one way is with video. And now it doesn't have to be necessarily that it's me and my whole team there, but it should be something that's crafted and thought ahead of time what to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
So
No, I love
yeah,
that idea.
yeah,
So, if you're literally scanning hundreds and hundreds of badges, it's probably difficult to make that happen. But if you've got a handful, you look at your list and you've got a handful of high profile, heavy hitter
right.
opportunities in there. Imagine the CEO or the VP of sales or marketing or whatever, whoever that person is, specifically standing there with a microphone in front of the booth saying, "Hey, Jim, I know you came by the booth. So glad to meet you." Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, talk about impactful and so personalized. So
right,
that's
right.
super cool. This reminds me a little bit of the other 48 shows that we've done to some extent, but specifically our buddy Carter Parrish,
Yeah.
who his experiential agency puts together a lot of these street teams, and you do it
Mhm.
in conjunction with the booth. So I
Right.
don't know if it was Nespresso, if I was talking to, maybe it was Carter or someone else that had a coffee, it might have been a creamer company, and they had a booth at the show, but their big kind of spend was the activation on the outside, and they
Yeah,
had people with like the cooler or the warmer backpacks. They're running around. They're filling people's coffee out in the street because it's
yeah,
cold.
yeah,
And you're capturing that stuff as well, and you're tying it all together, and it's
yeah,
literally building this kind of a push and a pull right outside the convention center to push into, and vice versa. So, like you have said so many times, is the very first video is really expensive because
right,
all of the people have gone in. But with proper strategy, proper planning, now we're doing all of these other things. The people
right.
are already there. We're already spending the time and effort to capture stuff, create a strategy that leverages the fact that we're all already here already. And then your
Yeah,
dollar cost per average of all of those different assets you've created just drops every time you do something new. It
yeah,
just drops more and more and more. So your ROI can really be significant on that.
yeah, yeah. You've been listening. That's great.
I know, right? And now I just got to make sure that my clients understand that, so we can
Right. Yeah.
get HAMLIN Creative involved in the RFI.
Right,
Um,
right.
all right, cool. So excellent. Let's go to bucket number 3. So pitch night foundation event. This is what you were talking about, not the bartender one, but the pitch night, although I think you're
Right.
going to mention a little bit of both. So this is kind of
Yeah.
falls into a slightly different bucket. Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit.
so the events space is really, a gala or a pitch night or even maybe a competition, but it's a little bit different. And so in this case, what we're looking at is capturing an event, but also trying to, and not that the other, let me step back, not that the brand activations or the trade shows don't do this, but when we talk about these events, this is where this really kind of comes to life, and it's about creating a library, because that one night, that one moment, we really want it to live on past that moment.
Right.
So what we're doing on the pitch night, so the pitch night is a the Enthuse Foundation, which is a women entrepreneur focused foundation that supports women entrepreneurs, and they have a pitch night every year where they get hundreds of applications, and then they whittle it down to a handful, and these women compete for substantial amounts of grant money. So this year they expanded it out and had Kendra Scott as a sponsor, as well as Amazon as a sponsor. The venue is bigger, the night is bigger. It all keeps growing on itself. And so we have been shooting content there, and what we deliver at the end is kind of a story about what happened, kind of take you through the night. But then we are handing over to the agency all of the interviews and the B-roll, so that then they can internally be creating content, for throughout the year. And then that in turn supports next year's pitch night, where they'll do a call for entries, and they'll get applications and that kind of thing. Same thing happens over on the bartender competition that we capture every year,
Mhm.
where we have a strategy that's been in place for several years now. It's as simple as before, during, and after. We're promoting the event before, we
Mhm.
are producing content on site during, and we are recapping and promoting next year afterwards. And that strategy, we know, has seen a 40% increase in the number of people applying to be a part of next year's competition. So, that kind of effort, but that again, it goes back to a strategy and an agreed upon plan that says, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And now we've got data that says, hey, it works when we do that. So, those are a couple of really events that we just love being a part of. And again, that strategy can be, parlayed into the other ones as well. It's
Right.
easy, when you're looking at a road show, that strategy is in place. When you're looking at an activation, you can be talking about, it can drive brand awareness for, what the product is you're selling or whatever that is. So there's a lot of ways that strategy can be utilized and then customized for the particular, event or activation that you're contemplating doing.
Gotcha. So just kind of a quick like peek behind the curtain type of thing.
Yeah.
You get you're planning out let's say the bartender competition. How many team members do you bring in for something like that? Because like you said, it all happens really fast.
Yeah.
One person can't be everywhere all the time. So you have to have a dedicated team that's hitting all of the different stuff, right? You got to spread out so that you're going to capture all
Yeah.
these things. What does
Yeah.
that look like from behind the scenes?
Well, it definitely varies. So, we've done stuff as a one-man band, which is hard, and not preferred. But, when you get to the bartender competition, we have anywhere from 8 to 11 crew members on site,
Okay.
because that particular event has multiple there's multiple things happening simultaneously, and so
Okay.
we have to have crews at each spot, at each bar, and then we have an editor on site, and then there's myself. We have an interview room and a couple cameras there, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts in that one. It takes a couple months to kind of get everybody set and get that program set for the year. But in the middle ground, I would say, like say a trade show, you could do that with a few people, like a couple cameras and a producer. I always like to have a producer on site because, like you've said, stuff goes sideways and the producer is really there. It's hard for a camera operator to really be the producer and be creative all at the same time. And so, that's a lot of times my role. And so I'm the one kind of looking out ahead. What do we need to do? Watching the schedule, looking for shots, making sure the client knows what we're doing, all of that kind of stuff. And then making sure that we're capturing what, on the vision that we've set out ahead of time. So, we could talk a little bit about that as well, about what it takes to kind of put this all together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, across the board, like every single person we've had on talks about their specific kind of wheelhouse within this, event realm. Goals. We always come back to the goals. Like what are the client's goals? What are they trying to accomplish? Right. So going in and understanding that. Now, let's say in a trade show application, I don't know who's going to walk by at what particular time, and I don't know which conversations are going to materialize. Some of them will be nothingness. Others will be amazing. Right. So we can't like set our watch and say, oh, at 3:00, specifically, I want you guys to capture this because this is going to be a great conversation. I mean, maybe there is opportunity to set those meetings with, high profile, customers or something like that. But then there's the spontaneous stuff that just kind of happens. So you got to be prepared. So there's a plan, and yet at the same time, you build in flexibility to be able to pivot. And all of a sudden you're grabbing something that you had never even imagined, other than the idea of like, let's get as much stuff as possible because you never know when the cool shit's going to drop.
And for, going back to trade shows again, I think that, when people are at trade shows, a lot of times they're at their best. They're excited to be there. Maybe it's the one time a year they get to go to this thing. They see clients, they see friends, they see colleagues, they're learning new things. There's a lot of positive energy in trade shows. And so that's where, if you're really looking at the opportunity there, you can really be playing off of that positive energy to position your brand in that space. What is it? MK said, like when you walk in, it's like
Warm
a
hug.
warm hug. Like, so why not leverage that to your advantage and really find it? And so what my guys are always doing, and my folks are always doing, it's not all guys, is we are looking for those moments. We are looking for those handshakes. We're looking for those warm hugs, those smiles, those moments, those aha moments where maybe somebody's getting a demo and didn't realize what this thing can do. So there's all of that kind of energy that's happening that is not scripted. And it's truly, when you're looking for authenticity, that's really where it's happening.
Right. Because you can feel that, right? You
You
can
can feel it. Yeah.
The viewer can feel like if something's totally staged and just totally kind of, cookie cutter, or if
Right.
it's really spontaneous, authentic stuff that you're like, oh my God, we just captured some serious gold here. This is great.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice job on the MK Granados drop. So we're going to have to reach out to MK at 35 minutes into the show. So we hit Carter Parrish at about 30 past. We hit a couple of our guests. So
Yes.
It's just building this memory bank between the two of us that have had all these great conversations. It is
right.
really
Right.
cool. And just as a heads up, on for our 50th episode, which will be on the 18th of December, Dana, who also sits in for about half of the other shows, all three of us are just going to riff on really some of our favorite conversations from the year, and we're going to do a recap.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
It'll be like a Spotify, Wrapped that I just got. I just got yesterday. I was sharing with Brendon and our friend, also another guest, Brandon Lee, that my Spotify told me that my listening age 71 years old. So, and my wife's 24.
Oh,
a lot of Taylor Swift. Yeah, my daughter's 24. My wife's not 24. Just let's be clear.
Yeah, you might want to. I don't know. Maybe you want to throw in some Swiftie music to bring your
something like that. Maybe apparently that's her wheelhouse. Where mine is the early 70s, Steely Dan and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Bucket 4. So here we're talking about private corporate events. Right, which you did one very recently, an NVIDIA AI conference, and it was basically kind of like their own private trade show. So it was a corporate event that they held, and we see this a lot. Anybody who does trade shows knows that these are expensive ventures, and there's a lot of things you cannot control. Your competition's there, right? There's all these people who are there, so a lot of brands will look at the scenario, and they will basically say, well, if we hold our own event, we control everything. We control the narrative, the motive, and then we can bring in partners and then charge them money to be there in front of our clientele and turn this, at least maybe not into such a big spend. Maybe it's a push. Yeah, I don't know that those events are necessarily profitable. That's usually not the goal. But if you bring in partners and charge them money to have a presence there in like a little trade show kind of a setup, that certainly can offset your dollars. So anyways, tell us a little bit about this recent event that you guys did.
Yeah, so it was in DC, and I believe that it is a series of events. So I think DC was just the location for this one, and then they're doing them in other parts of the country. But big event. It turns out that I connected with another production company in DC after we had shot this, and they were there as well, producing for NVIDIA on-site content that they were capturing throughout the course of the event. So we were there for not for NVIDIA, but for Together.ai, which is an AI focused company. And we had 3 days. We shot a cocktail party. We shot their booth presence. We shot some education events, and then also some just of their culture things. And so from there, again, you're getting this opportunity to it's a little bit different. It's focused. It's for them. It's not going out to the world necessarily. Together AI is relatively new, so they're looking to capture more content because they want to build up their own library of content. So again, you're hearing this sort of these common principles coming through. We did a series of conferences as well for Diageo, where they were pushing out a group of brand ambassadors essentially, and we did training pieces for them. And so over the course of 4 conferences, we generated a ton of content that then they used for the people that had attended the conference. So you can see where like the audience is very specific. Nobody else would ever want to watch or be allowed to watch this content because it's very specific to their business and what they're trying to roll out. But it had a high value for that group. So that could have been a seminar. It could have been an interview piece with some of the key leadership. There's a lot of different things. It could be culture, history, or pairings and that kind of thing to do with cocktails and that kind of stuff. So a lot of education focused content can come out of these conferences and meetings, because that's where the content that they're sharing is so concentrated, and you can really utilize that for carrying that message forward past the conference, especially, people walking out of there, how much are they remembering? Well, if you come back to them and say, hey, here was this piece, this, 25-minute conversation, roundtable or whatever, we've posted it up for you so you can come back and review it, or you take it and create a digest of it or whatever. There's all kinds of different things that you can, repurpose the content for a later date and then reissue it to that specific audience that maybe there's a broader audience that didn't make it to the conference but is still connected, and you want to speak to them as well. So there's a lot of content opportunities that can live on well past the conference date.
Right. I'm reminded of another conversation. I don't remember exactly who this was, but I know we've hit it a couple of times. What you were just describing is, so I'm an event manager with a brand. I have a budget to go do this event or do a show or whatever. But I realize, because we're planning ahead, we're strategically having conversations around what do we want to get from this. And we realize that, we're going to have, like you were saying, a training, an ability to capture a training there, or we're going to have, there's the keynote speaker is our VP of sales, and actually the salespeople aren't there, but this is going to be great to use as a training mechanism for the sales team. And as the event manager, I can now go within my org. I can go around and I can knock on the door and say, hey, listen, here's an opportunity. Do you guys have any dollars, budgeted that I don't have access to through my event budget, but you guys have, you have a different budget, right? You have a sales training budget. You have a social budget. You have an advertising budget, whatever it is. Like, hey, if we pool our money, we can do even more. We can bring in another, videographer, another producer. We can capture more content because of those shared dollars. And now we're getting even more value from all of that. And it's still the same event. It's still the same kind of lift. It just expands your reach a little bit and allows you to kind of dip into, different buckets and make things better for everybody involved, which is really cool.
Yeah. One of the biggest connectors, I think, is if an organization or a brand has a social media team, that team is at least has a dotted line to the folks that are creating the events, because I just sometimes that disconnect is a big missed opportunity, because the social teams, are constantly having to push stuff out. It's just, nothing lives very long in that space. And so you can be coming out of these events, not only creating stuff on site, but creating stuff long after that event that can be really beneficial to those folks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We've kind of answered this already, but I'm going to ask anyways, just in case there's any additional gold nuggets that you want to drop. So, we've captured all of this content. Like, what happens next after we've done that? And I know we've talked a little bit about it, but let's add a little bit more to that, if you could.
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things that are happening right now in the space, in the space of content, I should say. And one is that where we used to shoot 16:9, which is the aspect ratio, now it's going 9:16 as the dominant request. So a lot of our clients are saying, hey, we want this for vertical. as opposed to horizontal. Now, what we do in that case is that we frame for vertical. It's not that we shoot vertical like on a phone. We shoot horizontal, but the content that we're looking for is framed vertically. And so that is that allows that sort of flexibility. And so when we go and deliver the content afterwards, it's typically going to be vertical. And then we're going to also deliver a library of footage and to the clients that have in-house capabilities. If they don't, then we're certainly happy to help, generate and produce that content for them. But the companies that have that in-house capability, we will then work with them to deliver a library of content that is sometimes, like with the bartender competition, it's broken out by competitor, and then within the competitor, it's broken out into the challenges that they went through and that kind of thing. And then additional B-roll. So it's all organized for them, assuming that that's what we've agreed to do. And then that gives them that ability to create content in-house. And especially with that competition, they're producing, a couple pieces every month. And that's just keeping the awareness alive of what's going on. Now, having somebody in-house is beneficial in that case. Now, that in-house person is not able to do what we do in terms of capture, but they certainly can take our content and then create new content with it. So that's sort of it's a way to really make the most out of that. And again, going back to that cost per video, it just takes it way down. When you start thinking about all of the things that they could be producing over the course of a year, it's really the cost to capture goes, much lower. Which is great. But if you're only going to do a sizzle reel, you're only going to go to the trade show and just create a sizzle reel, that is where you kind of end up in a space where that single piece can be more than a lot of people want to spend. And that's where I really try to tell people, you've got to think beyond that. That can be part of it, but that can't be all of it. So it's really a matter of having that conversation, and that conversation is not necessarily the week before the event. It's really
it probably needs to happen a little bit before then.
A little bit before that, to then, so that we can understand what it is that what your goals are, and how we can best, bring the right tools and make sure that we're setting you up for success later on. So otherwise, then you're documenting, and there's definitely a difference between documenting and creating content. So, yeah.
Quick question for you. So when you guys are shooting with 16 with vertical in mind, but you're shooting it horizontal, can that be used in both ways? Or do you find that the way that you've kind of created the frame leads to, if I want to take that same video and make a more traditional, 16 by 9 layout that's meant for more traditional screens, does it not work, or can you leverage both ways?
Well, it's so that's we leverage both ways. And so again, we're shooting in a 16 by 9 frame, but we put guides on our screen so that the DP that's looking through their viewfinder is seeing that the action that they want is in that vertical frame. So then now it's easier to do that, shoot that way, and then make a horizontal piece than it is to, shoot vertically.
Right.
You can't, it's hard to go the other way, I guess is my point. You're going to lose some of it. And you see that happen you see that in reels these days, where there was something that was shot horizontally and framed horizontally, and the people were off the screen, like all you see is what's in the middle of the screen. And so you really have to kind of be cognizant of that as you're walking through and capturing, because it will affect it later on.
Gotcha. Okay. We are at 10 of the hour, so we're going to jump to our next thing here. So, a lot of event professionals end up, consuming our content or watching what we're doing here. So, give us a little peek, kind of behind the scenes. Like how do these content teams, actually work?
Yeah. So what we don't treat this really any differently than if we were shooting a commercial. Let's
Okay.
say, there is pre-production, there are logistics, there is a lot of work that has to be done ahead of time, even though we might have a shot list, but we don't have control over the environment. So if we're shooting a commercial in a studio, we own
Mm,
it. Everything that's going to happen, we are controlling. We walk onto a trade show floor or to an activation, we own none of it, and
mm,
so we have to work within that space. But that doesn't mean we don't prepare the same way. So there's a lot of pre-production. There are shot lists that are generated, which are, hey, this is what we would like to see. We want to see the
mm,
consumer with the product, happy, smiling, and enjoying it. We want to see the trade show executive making a connection with a customer. We want to see the demo, like all of that, we want to see. Now it's our job to go and get it. So we'll work on those. We'll work on that plan ahead of time. There's a lot of logistics that have to happen. We need to make sure that our guys can get on the floor, and are credentialed to get into the space, yeah, or are if we're going to be shooting, people, do they need clearances? Do we need to
mm.
get, releases signed? There's a lot of different things that have to happen when we are getting set up. And then that's going to be, it could be, I've sent one man band guys, in to do a show and, get as much as they can. That's one end of the spectrum. And the other end of the spectrum is we go in with a whole team, and we've got multiple cameras going, and it just all depends on, the scope and the resources and all of that kind of stuff. So, and then once we're done, we're leaving that place and usually coming out with a couple different elements. Like one can be a photo gallery, a lot of, where we're going to deliver a bunch of professionally shot photos, and then whatever the deliverables were that we had agreed upon. It could be a sizzle reel, it could be a lot of different things, and I can walk you through a couple. I built a list just to kind of give the folks an idea of what, what are some of the things that they could be thinking about, that you could be capturing, things that you'd be creating on site. And so this gives you a little bit of a rundown. So that's a little small. Are we going to be able to see that? Let me see if I can.
This is the point where we're like struggled in the green room ahead of time. Like, how do we
Yeah,
make this
yeah.
bigger?
Yeah,
So,
make that a
and
little
just
bit.
before you jump into this,
Yeah.
normally on the Toolbox, we end up with like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Guest, give us 2 or 3 kind of takeaways. This is our version. It's more substantial than 2 or 3. So you don't
Yeah.
need to get your notebooks out, kids. This is available. This is being recorded.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, this is a list of again, going back to, we've touched on some of these things, but
Mhm.
recaps are the thing that everybody sees, and there's a lot of debate over whether or not they're effective, and I think they're still effective, but they shouldn't be the only thing you're doing. So that's the difference. So they've
Mhm.
evolved to be, there needs to be other elements around that are companion to that.
Okay.
So, at trade shows, let's say there's usually a demo of some sort. Well, that's a great opportunity to capture that demo, and now you have it as a tool for your sales group to, say you're going to send it out as a precursor to a sales call. Like, hey, here's the demo that we had at Vegas. Want you to take a look at it, and now I'll be looking forward to talking to you more about it. We'll walk through it online or whatever on the call.
I can train new reps too on like, hey, this is how we do it.
Yep,
This is
exactly.
what an ideal scenario looks like, and the talking points and all of that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. Your executives, if you can have your executives on site, the folks that are really the face of your brand or your organization, having them on site in this space. I saw recently, I wish we had produced it, but we didn't, but at the Tractor symposium trade show, I think it was over in Nashville earlier this year,
Yeah.
a company that all they do is make skid steer wheels. and they put their CEO on their trade show booth, and he talked about the upcoming line of skid steer wheels that they were pushing out. Everything was there for him to do that. A skid steer, a wheel, all the graphics, everything was in place. To recreate that in a studio would be really expensive, but you've already put this time and effort and money into that. You could be creating, demos right there with your executives on site. Also, maybe pushing out messages to other folks, so there's all of those kind of things, customer testimonials, sponsors, social media moments that are happening in real time.
Yeah. Hey, let's camp on the customer testimonial for a second, because I think that is one of the most powerful things. And we're not always great. We're not always great at doing it, but when we have, worked with our customers and gotten a capture that's, right there in the booth, and they're not scripted. In general, they usually kind of ask like, well, what do you want me to say? It's like, just talk about how does Blue Hive make you feel? Something right like that. And the gold that can come from something like that. And it's just amazing. And it's not us, like with a commercial. It's like, these are real live customers saying these nice things about us. So
that's what we did with Nespresso, where they talked about the agency and their capabilities and all of that. And it was a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. All right. So sorry to interrupt on that.
No, it's great. These are just all different things that you could be doing. BTS, people love to see how stuff gets made. They love to see how even a time lapse of the booth coming together, or a time lapse of the activation coming to life. Like those kind of things that just, people love seeing that kind of stuff. And then, post-event stuff. What was what were the learnings? What happened? What were the positive moments? All of these kind of things can be created as content coming out of an event that are more than just the sizzle reel alone. So anyway, and I can post this on my website if you want to come in and take a look. Best place to see this kind of stuff is, and certainly we can talk through if anybody has questions specific to their world. I'm happy to chat with them.
No, that's awesome. And by the way, BTS behind the scenes.
BTS is behind the scenes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Insider jargon that we spin around here. Absolutely. All right. Well, I tell you, Brendon, you've exceeded expectations once again. It's been a great chat. I invite everybody out there who's listening to, reach out to Brendon, connect with him. What's the best way to connect with you? Actually, you should probably tell us.
Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn. That's where we spend a ton of time and talk about our different, all the different things we do, including craft beer and running. Not together usually, but also some work stuff. And then also our website is gethamlin.com. So happy to, so you can reach out to me there or on LinkedIn, and happy to connect and talk about any specific needs you might have. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great share. Obviously we're just kind of, the tip of the iceberg stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
To, creating content, but hopefully we've given you guys a lot of ideas, things to think about, maybe different ways to think about creating content, at all of the different events that you do. And reach out to Brendon to get a little bit more insight, whether it's using his company, or maybe just bouncing some ideas off of him. Yeah. Ideally using the company would be better. It helps pay the bills at the end of the day. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap it up. I got a hard stop. There's another meeting apparently happening at 1:00, and we got no rest for the weary, as it will. So I'm going to fade big time at some point. The red eye thing, I feel like there's no perfect way to do that. I did sleep for maybe 3 hours, and I came home and I slept a little bit more. I don't know. Sometimes that's worse. You should just go hard. Yeah. But anyways, well, I feel like we did okay. I didn't stumble or mumble through too many of the segments. You carried us today with a lot of conversation. So
yeah. Well, you probably don't know all of the areas where you actually did mumble. So
I was sleeping.
Back, you'll see.
Exactly. When I view the content that we've just created, I'll be like, oh my God, that was horrible. So, all right, my friend. Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody out there, happy eventing. We've got a couple more episodes happening before the end of the year. So we look forward to having some great conversations, and then we're gonna take a couple weeks off because, hey, on Thursdays, Christmas and New Year's happen on those days as well. So we need a little bit of time off to regroup,
Yes.
and then we're going to roll out a little bit of a new strategy in 2026. So thank you, everybody. Brendon, it's been a pleasure. Thank